want to thank everybody for coming out to the Angel Open Mic. First off, what did one angel say to the other at the party? Are ya having a good time? Woo, actually, no. Did you hear about this one? So, Bruce Willis was apparently asked to leave a grocery store because he was not wearing a face mask. Yeah, it's true. And he didn't actually understand the implications of doing such until a young boy came up to him, tugged him on his shirt, and said, "I see dead people." Okay. Anyways, here's the review. What's up and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today I'm joined once again by Mike from the Z Review to discuss a film that neither of us have actually seen. It's that classic supernatural romance film starring Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan. It's City of Angels. City of Angels focuses on a city and all the people within it as they are surrounded by countless unseen guardian angels that collect souls as they depart from our earthly plane, as well as comfort those that are suffering. One of these angels, played by Nicolas Cage, suddenly falls in love with a human and must weigh the implications of what that would mean and what it would take to be with her. So I first want to give a huge shout out and thanks to Mike for joining me in another one of my videos. It's always a pleasure, man, and before I get too carried away with this review, I just kind of want to say, check him out. I left a link to his channel in my description box down below for y'all to check out. Give him some love, tell him I sent ya. All that good stuff. We'll be hearing from him in just a hot second. But first, I've heard a lot about City of Angels for a very long time. I've always wanted to check it out for a variety of reasons. I've seen most of the films from Nicolas Cage in his prime, save for a select few. And the same goes for Meg Ryan, who I've always considered to be kind of, America's sweetheart. I also wanted to see it because, I honestly haven't seen a ton of films out there on the topic of angels. And if they're done right, that's a topic that can be really fascinating. Having seen it, I can say I definitely enjoyed it and was engaged for the most part, but at the same time, I feel like I was expecting something maybe a little bit more grander than what we got. It's so weird to see Nicolas Cage in a role where he's not constantly yapping about or going crazy. He has moments here and there in the film, though I say for the most part it was pretty subtle. There are a couple of main positives that I wanted to mention before I toss it to Mike. The first is kind of the aesthetic of the film, the way that it looks, which is a combination of production design, set design, costume, cinematography. It's all actually pretty well done. Pretty much any of the shots where you can see an angel perched out somewhere or standing still on a beach looking in the opposite direction, it looks pretty cool. More than that, how these angels are dressed, how they behave around emotions that people have that they themselves cannot express, it's all done in a way that feels appropriately otherworldly. It's one of the only angel films that I've ever seen, actually, where the angels are just so clearly not humans calling themselves angels. These are different. It's a good kind of bizarre that I think you can appreciate after watching, even if it is sometimes weird to see them going around obsessed with the idea of touching people without their permission. Another thing that I wanted to touch base on is the romance. Romance is one of those weird genres that are hard to get perfectly right because the chemistry of the two leads is pretty important in selling the love that they share. And there's one thing that I want to see in any given romance, and that's the impossible hurdle. In any of these films, there needs to be an impossible hurdle that the infatuated individual must overcome to earn the romance. And these impossible hurdles are usually pretty good in fantasy films because it can be that much more difficult or that much more impossible. And City of Angels was clear as day as to what that was. And because of that, I feel like the chemistry worked out really, really well. Plus, it doesn't hurt that Meg Ryan would have great chemistry with a boulder. Anyways, it's time to shoot it over to Mike to hear his thoughts on this film. Take it away, ma'am.
What's going on, Dave and everyone over at Interpreting Stars channel? I'm Mike, part of the Z Review, and I'm back once again onto Dave's channel. And it's been some time because last time I was on Dave's channel, we talked about the Superman franchise, which he got me to check out for the first ever time. And today's movie, nothing's changed. I'm checking out a movie for the first ever time again, and it's a film that came out in 1998 called City of Angels, and it was directed by Brad Sidlenberg, if I've pronounced that correctly. And to be fair, this guy has got quite a lot of credits under his name. Before this, he directed Casper, but nowadays he's directed, for example, like Jane the Virgin, Charmed, the TV series, so it's kind of more into that kind of TV work nowadays. Anyway, the movie itself stars Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan, who I must say, from right out the gate, they give great performances. And the plot of this is essentially an angel who is played by Nicolas Cage under the character name of Seth, sees Maggie's character played by Meg Ryan and instantly falls in love with her, and from that moment Nicolas Cage's character Seth wants to then become a human to basically be with Maggie because he falls in love with her. So firstly, I will say this about City of Angels. It's got a very unique concept. That's one thing I kind of liked and appealed me to this movie, especially when Dave hit me up and said, Mike, do you fancy collabing on City of Angels? I was like, yeah, I've never seen this before. I will admit, I've seen maybe about 5-10 minutes here and there of this movie from time to time, so I've seen kind of like key scenes, but besides that, I didn't really know like kind of the backstory of it or anything, and I'm glad I've actually checked this out for the first ever time. As I mentioned before, the main performances of Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan, great. I felt like they had great chemistry in this, and Meg Ryan was kind of coming off the hots of like You've Got Mail, or that was shortly after this movie, whereas Nicolas Cage was coming off the hots of Con Air, Face Off, The Rock, for example. So he had already brought those credits to this role, and he played a very unique character for a Nicolas Cage movie. It was a very tame, a very mellow performance by Nicolas Cage, and I was like, wow, no wonder this guy has got like an arsenal and a huge range of acting ability. Where did it go south? I mean, I guess in the last couple of years he's kind of picked himself back up, but before that point, I didn't really like Nicolas Cage movies. I'm going to be honest, I've never been a huge fan of his. I do like Con Air, for example. I have seen that one. But Meg Ryan, however, she was definitely a star of comedy. And I do know that she gave it up after like a hiatus in acting. And it is a shame because she really brought like an essence and kind of this chemistry vibe and this pure aura about her on the screen that I can't really even describe, not even in this review. It's really tough to say so. So overall, their chemistry and their performances together, great. I like the fact that this movie is a bit of a slow build-up to them actually getting into like a romantic relationship, or at least running another feelings for each other, because Maggie's character played by Meg Ryan, she is a surgeon, so it is very difficult, and I can imagine her job itself very difficult and obviously very situational based, depending on what's happened and how she's going to operate and kind of perform in her role that day. Like anything, we could start off a day having like a great day, or can turn into be a rubbish day, or vice versa. And it's definitely the same for her character, and you kind of feel that at moments in this movie, which I really liked. It didn't just show right every day was a great day, she came out smiling, she was chirpy, she was laughing. There's days where she's downright depressed, or there's days where she feels like that she shouldn't be in the job that she's in, and I was like, wow, I felt like they portrayed that fantastically. I actually liked that element of this movie. And Seth's character himself, I liked him, don't get me wrong, but I didn't really feel like there was a big build of his character. We just know that he's an angel right out the gate, but is it the case of he's always been an angel, or has he died in a previous life to get to that status? That is never kind of explained in this movie, and I wish it was. Even in a quick 2-minute backstory or flashback scene right at the beginning of this movie, we don't get that. The movie itself opens in a very unique way, which I was a bit like, what's going on? Obviously, I know the synopsis was Nicolas Cage was an angel, but he just sees this girl at the beginning of the movie, and I was like, and what's this about? Yeah, so at times this film, great. I actually liked the premise of it. At times the movie was a little bit frustrating because I felt like they could have explored some avenues that's touched on in this film, but maybe not touched on enough. And there is some outdated green screen effects where the angels, Nicolas Cage and this other guy, part of the main two as such, are kind of like having moments where they're talking. That dialogue and exposition scenes isn't that great for me. Didn't really add any meaningful value. For me, those kind of green screen effects that are a little bit outdated did put me off at times, because there's parts where they use kind of like scaffold and big buildings to talk, and at those moments, great. I was like, well, why not use more of those ventures? Or at one point, they sat on a plane, and I was like, well, why not use those in kind of more scenes? Instead, they're sitting on kind of this big Elvis statue, I believe, at one point, and it just looks stupid. It looks way out of date and doesn't hold up well. But overall, the movie itself, I liked it. I would say that the ending, I'm very torn on. And I don't want to say too much for kind of spoilers, because if you're like me and never really seen it before, I don't want to spoil it for you. But there's one part where Nicolas Cage is making a big decision, and then kind of the ending kind of ruins that decision. Okay, firstly, I like the risk that they actually took with that. I thought, okay, I admire that they tried something different. Great, I'll give them props for that. However, I felt like the ending didn't really satisfy my need, as in what they build up for this kind of hour and 40 minutes or so in this movie. They kind of had all this build up to kind of then just squish it and kind of ride out the last 10 minutes, and for me, it didn't work. I wasn't really sold on it at all, and I think that was probably the most disappointing part of this movie. But anyway, Dave, firstly, I just want to thank you, man, for putting me onto this film, because again, I'd never seen it before, so to actually check it out for the first ever time, I loved it. Overall, I actually enjoyed the movie, and I'm actually glad I can say I haven't seen 5 or 10 minutes of it anymore. I've actually seen the full runtime. Always a bonus. But Dave, I'm going to hand it back over to you, my man, and over at Interpreting Stars. Guys, please give this guy some love. He is awesome. He's creating so much content, and not just for himself, but for you guys that are subscribed to him. And Dave, also congrats on hitting 500 subs. As of late, I'm really proud of you, man, and I know that in the future you're going to bust up sub count, and I wouldn't be surprised if you're monetized very soon. So Dave, back over to you, my man, and your remaining thoughts of City of Angels.
Hey, thanks again to Mike for joining me in this review. I definitely appreciate it. Again, you can check out his channel in my description box down below. Send a sub his way, because he definitely has not only a ton of great content himself, but he always has such a great attitude about everything that he does. So yeah, I think for the most part, you and I once again agree on this movie. That's often the case, so I'm not super surprised, but always happy to see that we see eye to eye, especially on the chemistry and performances. That's what this movie is all about. It's all about human connection, which is definitely on display. I too noticed the sometimes aging green screen work for when the angels are perched out somewhere doing their whole exposition speeches, and I am very much aware of the problem that you had with the ending. However, without giving too much away, I still think that there was some important and almost poetic symbology things going on in the movie, but because the movie focused so hard on the romance angle, it didn't give enough of the screen time to some of those more poetic things that the film definitely had in there. I mean, they had a little bit of it in the very beginning of the movie, when Seth is just so enamored by the little things that the humans do that he cannot, like touch, like see color. They don't go too deep into that, but the angels cannot even see the full beauty of the world because they can't see in color. They can't feel warmth. They can't be hurt. And all these things are absolutely fascinating to the angels. Once Meg Ryan shows up in the film, it kind of steers away from that idea and focuses so hard on romance and romance alone. And I kind of wish it wasn't the case, because I think it had something there. And not only that, it's actually one of the early selling points of the film that lets us all know that what you're watching is not just a person. This is something otherworldly. With that being said, let's go ahead and break down my final score from a technical, unbiased vantage point. I had mentioned before that I enjoyed the aesthetic of the film quite a bit. The look of the angels, the cinematography, the production design, set design, all that. It's not bad at all. This score is 86%. My bias score, or how I felt about the film as a whole, I don't know. I liked it okay. I didn't love it. And as I said before, I did expect something maybe a little bit grander, because I've heard about this movie a lot in my life. But for what it is, it's decent. This score is 76%, averaging everything out to a final score of 81%. 81 out of 100 possible stars, or a B- letter grade. Guys, if you've seen City of Angels, let me know your thoughts of it in the comment section down below. And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out.
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert. He is the #1 critic that I go to when I need a movie pick. Thanks for joining up with us. We think you're